Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mental Fitness. My guest today is Brianna Newhart, who is an amazing new friend that I met through TikTok, through her great TikTok videos about what's going on in Indiana. And then we shared a live on her TikTok, and I found out her own personal story with grief. Brianna lost her husband at the start of the COVID pandemic because of COVID, and it was actually a news story. And Brianna's going to really talk about her experience with such tragic loss and grief. And also, we're going to dive deep into the COVID pandemic, which all of us are still recovering from, honestly. It became so divisive politically and so nasty, and people on both sides said such hurtful things. We're going to really get into it with an empathetic, let's care about everybody and let's just discuss this hard topic, and maybe it'll help you all deal with your own loss or deal with division in your own families, which I think most of us have. Brianna, thank you so much for being on. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me. I am doing pretty well today. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to talk to you. I know it's going to be a hard conversation, but I honestly like those because when we get done with them, I'm going to know more about you. I'm going to care more about you, and I'm going to learn and grow. So I'm excited about the growth. I'm not excited about hearing about you suffering. Yeah. Uh, your hair looks beautiful. You look
Thank
amazing
you.
today. Thank you for doing this. So take us through, just tell us a little bit about you and your husband. You were pretty newly married when this tragedy happened. Could you just tell us a little bit about you and him?
Yeah, so Lou and I got married in November 2nd of 2018. We met through Plenty of Fish. Like, I mean, like everybody meets through online dating. He was definitely, I don't know, something that I didn't actually think I would marry. I come from, excuse me, both of my parents are educated people. My dad's an engineer, my mom's a physical therapist. So, there were expectations. So Lou was a construction worker and he did project management for an epoxy floor company. And I don't know, he was just super funny. He was really tall. He was like 6'3" and was like the size, like his shoulders were so wide that it's just like he used to play football and he looks like a linebacker kind of a thing. And he just like would come, him as a person, he just came off as like really gruff and everything, but he was just like a big teddy bear, really. And, you know, um, we just hit it off and he was kind of, he helped me a lot. Like he just calmed me down a lot. Like I had a lot of anxiety before he passed. It's kind of changed now, but he would kind of calm that anxiety in me, and I think that's what really drew me to him, is that he was such a calming influence
Oh, that's so
on me.
nice.
Yeah. And I mean, he was definitely like one of the funniest people I have ever
Aw.
met in person. Like he would do like stories about work and it would just have people rolling on the floor, like just a really funny person who just, I don't know, he just got a shit lot in life, excuse the language,
Oh,
but
you're fine.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know. It's like if we could cuss out here. But yeah. I mean, he's just larger than life. If you knew Lou, he you there was no way. He was such a presence. And he just was one of those people that people were drawn to because he was funny. He was a good storyteller, and he just did epoxy floors, and honestly I thought his floors were beautiful. Like I thought he kind of did like an artistry kind of thing with it,
Yeah,
like
we have epoxy floor in our basement, and it was really
okay.
hard to do. My husband studied how to do it and had a friend help
Mhm.
him, and it was really hard, and it is an art. So that's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do. That's cool that he did that.
Yeah, and he did the metallic floors, which were
Oh,
even
neat.
more
Oh, yeah,
cool.
those are
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, and I think that me being, more of an artsy person, I started in vocal performance before I went into speech therapy, so I
Oh,
think that
neat.
that was also kind of a draw for me. And just being he's a very family oriented person, really liked my family because he didn't really have much of a family. So he really got close with my mom as a result of
Aw,
that.
so
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, and the sword, if you see in the background, that is the sword that I gave him for our wedding as a wedding present. It has our names and wedding date on it. So
Did he like stuff like that?
yeah, he did. He was really
Aw.
excited. He the pictures, because like he was a really, really good gift giver, and I am historically not. And so I really I really tried, like, and I try to be a good gift giver, and sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But I knew, like, as soon as I got the idea, I knew that he would love it because he loved all the Viking stuff, and like he just he always said he should have been born a Viking, and I bought him like a battle axe as well at some point and stuff. It was just like, he liked that stuff. He likes to collect things. So,
Yeah.
so he collected like that and like Steelers stuff. He was a big Steelers fan. And then also like the Joker. He also liked Batman and the Joker and had toy collections and all sorts of stuff.
Your husband sounds a little similar to my husband. He likes similar stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's just it ends up being a lot of stuff after they're gone, though. I will
That's
say.
funny.
Yeah,
So how
so
long did you all date before you got married?
so we met in 2016 in August. So we got engaged. We got engaged in, I want to say, January of 2018. And then we were married in November because I don't like to spend money. And I knew that the wedding venues would be more expensive the next year. So I decided, I was like, no, let's do this quick. I can do this.
That's smart, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had two weddings. I've been married twice, and the second wedding was a lot cheaper and a lot more fun. A
Yeah, I
lot
agree.
less stressful. So that was
Yeah.
smart on your part, I think. Okay, so you get married right before the pandemic then.
Yeah. So November 2018. So we are
2018.
married
Okay.
for, yeah. So we're married for a year. And unfortunately, during that year, so let me back up.
Sure.
So my husband, so it's a long story. There's a lot of moving parts with this. So my husband had actually had 6 surgeries in 2019.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So when I met him, he had had some back issues from probably playing football and stuff and not doing it correctly back in the 90s and early
Right.
2000s. Um, but it was kind of like something they were watching and stuff. But then he got into 2 car accidents by both drunk drivers. Mhm.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, so he ended up needing a back fusion. And so he had that done and then he was fine, but then his like hips, his like legs started to have a lot of pain and it started atrophying and we couldn't figure out why. Didn't appear to be coming from the back. Luckily, a physical therapist realized that it was coming from the hip, not the back, because his hip at 35 years old, he needed a total hip replacement. And yeah, and because they don't know why, they think it's something genetic maybe, or maybe something about how he compensated when he walked. But,
Right.
regardless, because he was a very muscular and such a tall, wide individual, it during the first surgery, part of the muscle that connects your hip flexors detached. And so they had to go back in to reattach it. Unfortunately, he had a fall, it came out again. So we had to go back in to replace it, but then that time he got an infection. So then we had infection clean out surgeries, and he was off work from like June of 2019 until he passed away because
I'm
of
so
this.
sorry.
Yeah. So it was like,
It's just so not fair. Life is not fair. Your husband did not have a fair shot. It's so sad. All of these things, these drunk driving accidents, the back injury, the surgeries, and then he's going to enter the COVID pandemic. I mean,
yeah,
so it sounds like your first year of marriage was medically very hard. You're trying
it,
to help stop his major problems, and he's probably in a lot of pain.
oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm so
So
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, like in our wedding video, you can, when we're doing our first dance, you can see him, he's really smooth and everything, but as soon as it stops, you can tell he's in so much pain and starts
Oh,
limping.
no.
And it's like, I know, because he was really good at hiding the pain a lot of the time, but yeah, he was in so much pain. Like, I've been in arguments with so many doctors because of the opioid crisis, if you will. that there's another topic, but they would like come, he would go into surgery and they would try to give him less pain meds than they gave him in the previous surgery. And I'm like, this is the number five, number six time he has been cut open. They're questioning if it's infected in the actual hip replacement,
And then
which
they're
is
treating him like he's addicted to opioids.
yes. And
Yeah.
I was so frustrated by the entire experience.
It
I
has to
was
be so painful because you love your husband so much and you're seeing him in pain, you're seeing him weak and vulnerable, you're advocating for him, they're not listening. I had my heart goes out to you. It sounds like a very difficult time.
it definitely was because at some point, so at the beginning of 2020, I actually started working two jobs
Oh,
um,
wow.
because I was working in the nursing homes, and then it was not my cup of tea
That's
personally.
hard work.
It is. I did it for 5 years, and that was
Wow.
plenty. And then so I switched to First Steps, but I still covered the nursing home as well to make up the difference for the fact that my husband hadn't worked in like 6 months because he couldn't.
And you probably have medical bills too.
Oh yeah. Well, at that point we had hit our max. So basically
Good.
it was like basically a race to get the max out of pocket because we knew we were going to hit it. So it's like we were trying to get everything done within that year because we had already hit it. And I was like, if he needs another surgery, we need to do it before the year starts over. Um, and so after we did one more surgery, and then, we're in to the new year and he was going to go back to work. And I remember having a conversation on New Year's Day saying, I don't think you should return to work, in 2 weeks because I'm concerned you're going to hurt yourself. I'm concerned you're going to get an infection in that leg. I think that, yes, this is hard, but I would rather you heal correctly and be around.
Yeah,
And
you want
it,
your husband to survive this. Yeah.
exactly. So we came to agreement, and like, the wound was finally healing and everything. And then he had his birthday at the end of February. And, obviously being off work that time, it was hard. He struggled with depression really
Oh,
bad.
yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure he wanted to be a good husband to you. He wanted to provide, have happy memories. He's
Yeah.
feeling so guilty for putting you in pain. Like, I'm sure because it sounds like he really loved you. I can't imagine the struggles he was dealing with. Of course, he had depression. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah. And it was really difficult. And we had an issue. It was just the whole situation was just is a prime example of how messed up our medical system is, to be quite honest. Because I had finally convinced him to get some mental health help. And
Mhm.
the person he went to, he asked me to go to his first session, and they did try to do EMDR, but it was like back in 2019, it wasn't as well known, at least to me it was. Do you know what EMDR is?
A little bit. It
Okay.
sounds like me personally, just I would think he just needs a legit good therapist to listen to him and then to just care about him and give him some tips at first and then go into that later. Like maybe
Yeah,
not dive
that's
into that right at the beginning.
yeah, unless somebody comes in saying, I want to do EMDR or ART. It's like I understand, like, as somebody who understands a lot of psychology, I knew why she was doing it because he has some childhood trauma,
Mhm.
or had childhood trauma that he had never dealt with, and it involved his mother.
Aw.
So uh, I knew that they were trying, that her thought was to address the trauma. I get that. Totally understand that. How she approached it was not a good approach for Lou. And didn't trust her, and I could see it all over his face, and she gave him this, and I was like, he is overwhelmed. This is not going to work. And then at the end of the session, she kept saying she had to go home and take like a Vicodin because she had an abscessed tooth, which I thought, and she said it like 3 or 4 times. And after I left, I called her supervisor because I thought that was entirely inappropriate for a mental health provider to tell their patient that they're going to go home to take some narcotics. And it was just such a bad experience all around.
It's sad because you're trying so hard you're researching, you're advocating, you're doing everything you can to get your husband healthy, and you're being the system is stopping you. The system is broken in multiple ways, and you know what's best for your husband. You love him so much. You know him better than most people. I can I would be very frustrated that I wasn't being listened to, and, like, I've been there.
Oh yeah,
I've been there
no,
advocating and people being like, "You don't know what you're talking about," and it's frustrating, and if we all just had more empathy for people and listened and cared and didn't always think we knew better, that he would have gotten better care, and it's frustrating for me to hear this, that you
yeah,
went through this,
yeah,
that
and I don't know if anything would have changed, like, because when you do lose somebody, you go through this game of what if. What if he had never fallen? That's the big one for me, is after the second surgery. What if he had let me help him that day and then
Oh,
he never would have fell? And so, like, it's it's just hard. It's just, I don't know what they would have done differently. I don't know what we would have done differently, to be
right.
honest.
Yeah.
It,
I feel you. My dad fell after his stroke and hurt his back, and it messed him up so much, that one fall down the stairs. And I do a lot of, if he just wouldn't have fallen down the stairs, and
yeah,
you can't go back. We don't have a time machine. You can't change it. So I totally get that. And I'm so sorry. Scott, Aaron Rodgers, who talked about losing his son, he's like, if he only would have asked for more medical equipment when they sent him home too early from the hospital, a lot of what ifs with that. And it breaks your heart because you can't go back, and he did everything he could. We're not perfect. We don't know, we can't change what happens. We can just do our best, which you were, and your husband was. Like, it was really brave of your husband to go and get therapy and to try to get better. That was really wonderful of him.
yeah, and he was very much like, my political leanings. He was very much the opposite a little bit. And
Right.
he was growing, and obviously he never went to college, so it's like empathy for that, and empathy that, like, he didn't get to experience the things that I got to experience. But also, I was not involved at that point in my life and didn't really understand everything. But getting back to kind of the story, it's like he had his birthday, and then at the end of February, and then at the beginning of March, he started having breathing problems.
Oh,
And so, he had mild asthma. So, and he had said he had gotten pneumonia once before, and he said, "This is what it feels like. I just need a breathing treatment." And I said, once he agreed to let me take him to, he agreed to let me take him to like an urgent care. And when they got in, they put the masks on. I don't even know if they gave us masks to put on, because it was like before any of this was supposedly in the US at that point. They were telling us that it wasn't even in the US.
so the start of COVID, the stories are happening. The
Yeah.
stories of COVID happening in other places has
Yes.
come out then. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, all through the first of the year, we're hearing different places. Maybe in the beginning of March, it was in the US, but it wasn't in Indiana.
And
Suppose.
remember, we thought it was by touch. We didn't know it was by air. So
Yep.
everybody was into hand sanitizer. We were
Mhm.
like putting our packages out. Like, this is different than what it
We
is
haven't
now
even
where we
gotten to
know.
that part yet.
Yeah, where we know it's air. We didn't know it was airborne back then.
No, and like, everything was still a mystery. And honestly, like, I don't remember the order of how.
You were going through a lot.
Yeah, I was so, because like he had another hospitalization in March, because we went to the urgent care.
So this is
They
March 2020.
Yeah, March
Yeah.
2020. We're
Okay.
in March
Boy,
20.
what
Yeah.
a time in history for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I take him to the urgent care, and he gets back there. They immediately put oxygen on him and are doing all these things. There's a lot of commotion. And then it starts to become, then somebody comes in and says that the CDC says you need to isolate him. And then that is when it clicks for me. They think he has COVID.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. And so this is the time they did not have tests in Indiana at this
Right.
point, because that was not until like the beginning of April.
Okay.
So, or the end of March, actually. So they end up admitting him, or they want to send him to an actual hospital. and they call an ambulance. And his oxygen level is like in the 70s and 80s. So when your oxygen is that low, you are often confused at that point
Okay.
and you don't really understand what's going on because most of us, for normal, it's like 95% and above.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they say the ambulance is here and he gets mad that they called an ambulance, and he just realizes that that's what's happening, is that he is going to go to a hospital via
So he's out
ambulance.
of it because he's not getting enough oxygen to his brain.
But this is what happens. He gets angry, stands up out of the wheelchair and leaves against medical advice instead. So I'm telling him, I'm like, I'm not taking you home. That is not something I'm doing. And I said, you can, there's an IU and a St. Vincent's where we used to live. And I say, do you want to go to St. Vincent's or do you want to go to IU Health? Because if you don't tell me, I'm going to choose for you, and eventually he told me he wanted to go to IU. I take him there. They admit him for a couple days. I am still going to work through all of this
Wow.
on top of it, and then coming back in the evening. We have a dog. We had it we I have a dog. We had the dog as well when he was alive. So I'm having to deal with the going to work, coming home, dealing with the dog, going to the hospital,
Do you not have
and
close family? Are they helping? Can they help?
so my mom and dad live on the other side of Indy, like near
So
the,
it's hard to help.
yeah, it's like 45 minutes
So
away.
you're a lot on your own then.
Yeah, and back then I lived even farther, so it was more like an hour or more away.
Right. Okay.
So I didn't have a lot of people in town that could really help me with that
It
stuff.
just sounds so hard what you two went through. I'm just so
Yeah,
sorry.
my friends, people did a lot of stuff like meal trains and stuff that was really
That's
helpful
nice.
in that time. I had a friend who came and visited me one weekend because like this was months and months and months of this. And
Yeah, your
so
mental health has got to be suffering so much.
there was a lot of crying in the car that happened, in especially on the way to work. And it's just like they eventually, like, I remember the day they discharged him at the beginning of March, because they did discharge him because they never confirmed if he had COVID at that point. And he gets better enough that they can send him home. And I remember the nurse like making a joke about everyone buying all this toilet paper and it's probably going to amount to nothing and all that stuff. And we left the hospital, and then about, I don't know, like 10 days later, I start having shortness of breath
Oh
symptoms.
no.
Yeah. And I thought, so during this year, like I had put on bad weight. It's just when you're doing all this
You're
stuff, you
not
don't have
able to take
time
care of
to
your
take care
body.
of
Yeah, that
yourself.
makes totally understandable.
Yeah. And so I thought I was just fat and out of shape. And when I was
Oh.
going up the stairs, and then we went to Costco, and at this point, this is when Costco had started limiting how many people in the store. You had to wear a
Oh wow.
mask. And so, we were already wearing masks, and I had stopped working at the nursing home, was around this time because Lou had noticed that when I was putting stuff in the car, because he couldn't help me because he was still hurt. And so he noticed I was getting out of breath, and he said, "No, this is more than just you not being in shape." And so called the doctor, and they said basically your symptoms are too mild in order for us to give you a COVID test. And so to isolate essentially and to go to the hospital if it got worse.
Just like you probably have COVID, but we don't know when we can't afford to waste one of these tests on you. You're not sick enough.
Basically.
Because
Basically.
now they're testing, we have plenty of tests
Oh
now.
yeah, now it's like easy to get a test. But back then, remember they had just came out with the tests and they were rationing tests
Yes.
to different
Yeah.
states.
Boy, you're bringing up a lot of trauma because I didn't have anything you had, and it was still so hard. It was
Eh,
still so hard in March 2020. Oh
Oh yeah.
man,
Yeah, so
it was just so scary. We didn't
it
know the unknown.
Yeah, and I mean, and I was doing First Steps full time, and which I go to people's houses. So we were like on calls trying to figure out, can we do virtual services? Are people going out? It Because like some people took off 2 weeks thinking it really would be only two
I
weeks.
remember that. If everybody could just stay home for a couple weeks, we can solve this. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like all it did was flatten the curve, and it would have worked more efficiently if the government had been more forthright with everything. Um,
A lot of misinformation.
mhm.
A lot of, I don't know when it started. When did it start becoming a left and right thing? Because that really hurt so many people in America.
I feel like it was after his death, really, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'll get into
Yeah.
that as
I think it
well.
took a little while too, because at first it seemed like we were sort of all in it together trying to figure it out. The misinformation hadn't really hit at the beginning because we just didn't know. We were all like, what is going on? We're all watching the news. We're all trying to figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, like, as somebody who, was in the nursing homes, is considered a care provider, it is true that, like, you get desensitized to a lot of these things. And, you know, uh, so it's like I don't fault that nurse for what she said, because I was kind of thinking the same thing, that it wasn't going to be a big deal. Um, but it could have been. I was still worried because, like, I have an autoimmune disorder. So I was
Oh,
concerned about if I got COVID. So we were concerned about me getting COVID, not him.
oh.
And and so then I start to get better, but then, 10 to 2 weeks later, kind of thing, 10 days to 14 days later, he starts getting worse again. As
So
I
how long was he in the hospital?
Like 2 or 3 days,
Okay.
maybe.
So he's at
Yeah.
home, but he's
Hmm.
he's not doing well.
Yeah. He never really kind of got better. It it's like I don't know if I passed it back to him or how. Like, I have no idea where it came from. If it came from him going to a gym, him going to a doctor's appointment, me bringing it home from the nursing home,
Because we didn't
or
know how it was spread back then. So now
yeah.
we know airborne. Somehow you breathed it.
Yeah, so it could have just been a random person for all we know.
Right.
Um but he starts getting worse, and I start getting concerned because his oxygen starts dropping. The inhaler no longer works to keep his oxygen as high as I would like it, and we're tracking his fevers and all sorts of stuff. And I just remember texting people and like one of his friends being like, he needs to go to the hospital. I'm like, well, I can't force him. It's like, I'm 5'7". He is over 6 foot and weighs way more than me. I cannot force him to do anything. Um, so what we ended up doing was that he agreed that if it got to a certain point, or his oxygen got to a certain point, he would go to the hospital again. And he woke up, um, it was like March 31st, and he couldn't breathe. And it was very obvious. He looked very pale and kind of gray. And he said, he woke me up and said he wanted to go to the hospital. And I said,
Oh, so
okay.
it has to be really bad if he's asking to go.
Exactly. So he's trying to get ready to go, and I'm like, it's very obvious he doesn't even have the oxygen and energy to put on his shoes or get dressed. I have to help him do these things, which was something that I'd never helped with before. With him, sometimes his shoes when he first had his hip replacement done, but that's a little different. So we get in the car, and on the way there, it's like I'm speeding. And he's like, "You're gonna get in an accident," and I'm like, "Well, I need to get you to the hospital and get you help." And
I'm so sorry, girl. I wish I could be in person and give you a hug right now. You take all the time you need, okay?
so we get there, and he's like, I've been in the hospital all summer. I don't be there again.
I'm so sorry.
So we get there, and this is the time they started not letting people into the hospital at all.
Oh,
So I have to drop him off at the door. He doesn't let me kiss him goodbye because he's afraid he's gonna give me COVID. And so he gets wheeled away, and he can't breathe. They're in their like hazmat looking suits. I do registration from 6 feet away in the breezeway. The nurses are behind plexiglass and their little hazmat suits. And then I go home and I try to work and because I don't know what else to do.
You can't
Because,
stay there because of the COVID lockdown restrictions.
yeah,
I mean, this is the worst time to get sick and need to go to the hospital,
yeah, exactly.
especially with COVID when we don't know how to treat it.
Exactly. And so I I do a couple virtual sessions. I work with kids under 3, so it's always like a crapshoot when you're doing virtual sessions with
Yeah, with
toddlers.
3-year-olds, that's too
Right.
hard. Yeah. Yeah.
So I get it. I end up trying to work. I feel like I tried to work a little bit that day, but that day is when I decided to stop working, or the next day. Um, because I got a call from the hospitalist, and he said, "We think he has COVID. We're gonna have to ventilate him
Oh no.
and sedate him." And I asked him how he responded to that, and he said he actually had you already told him, and he said he actually responded well to it. Um, and so while I'm on the phone with the hospitalist, Lou is texting me and saying, "I need you to call me now." And then he's proceeding. And so I get on FaceTime with him and we talk that way until they come in to put the vent. That's how I said goodbye to my husband. It's
I
through
mean,
FaceTime.
I just remember the horrifying news when you got on a ventilator, very few people came out of it.
Yeah. So we kind of just talked about like him still fighting, that I still needed him around, that like we just got married. You can't give up, because I knew he was depressed. And this was on top of everything. And he told me he would fight and that he loved me and I was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Oh, it's so sweet. It sounds like it's so true too.
And we just talked, told each we loved each other until it was time to go. And it's just, it still kills me that that's how I have to say goodbye.
I'm so sorry. It's so sad. I, hearing this and already knowing the outcome, I know that he was so lucky to have you. He had a really rough time with all of his injuries and with COVID, and you couldn't control any of that. And I'm just glad he had you. I'm glad he had your love.
Yeah.
I'm glad he said those things to you and you said those things to him. I'm so sorry he died. His life is so not fair.
No, no, no. And,
It
it, and it,
is
it's
not
it's
fair.
not even done. That's the problem. Like, this is not even all of it.
Oh, keep going.
It's
Gosh, I'm so
okay.
sorry.
Um, so they transfer him to IU North, which is in Carmel,
Oh, wow.
because that's where they're sending all of the COVID patients, essentially.
Okay.
And so they get him there, and it's confirmed COVID, and essentially things just go from bad to worse. And he gets a really high fever. They think he's gonna die that night. It breaks finally. We think we're out of the woods. Eh, yeah. And then it ends, and then his fever starts to come back, and his breathing, it never gets better. It's That's the thing, is like when they explained a lot about being on life support to me during that time, and they were saying that you're not supposed to be on life support for very long, and you're
Okay.
not supposed to be getting the max amount of oxygen for very long, because it's harmful to your body, I guess. It's like
Okay.
can be toxic if you get too much oxygen or whatever. And so when they weren't able to continue weaning him down off of the oxygen, is when they started to call me and say, "Hey, things are continuing to go bad. We're gonna try this other thing." And I had like infectious control calling me and all sorts of people, and like, and he's like, "Well, do you want us to try this experimental thing?" And I was like, "Is that our only option? Would you do it if it was your wife?" And he said yes. And I said, "Okay, then let's do it." And um so nothing obviously helps.
Well,
But
they didn't know at the time. I mean, it's just the worst timing to get it. They didn't know.
Yeah, they knew nothing. They knew absolutely nothing. When he first went in, they told me he'd probably be in there 2 weeks and then be fine because he's young, he's healthy, there's no,
Didn't
they
know.
see
And
no
everybody
reason.
we know now everybody reacts differently to it, especially when it's the first time getting a brand new virus. Everybody's bodies handle it differently.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's so wild, but I called every night because I couldn't be there. I tried really hard to get into the hospital every day.
It was so hard to go in the hospital during this time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I was like, I'll even do speech therapy things. It's like for free if you let me go see my husband. Like, because I was like, I probably already had it. You should just let me come in there anyway. I was trying every different angle. I was like talking to, their what are they called, chaplains and stuff, like trying to do it that way through hospice. Because then at like the day before he died, so this is April 5th, they told me that morning that he had like 24 hours to live, essentially.
Oh gosh.
And so they said, you need to get in here now and say goodbye. And so I just start calling everyone, and I get nowhere. I get absolutely nowhere until I put it on Facebook. And then luckily my dad saw it because that was the other thing, is that Lou told me he didn't want people to know
Oh.
until, because we thought he would get better. And so I respected his wishes because that's what he told me to do. And it wasn't until after I was just trying to see him one more time that I was like, well, forget it. Like, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I put it on Facebook, what was going on. And my dad, luckily, went to high school with Dr. Box. And, she was Indiana's, like, what, health services, something. I don't remember. But she was able to let a hold of the administrator of the hospital, who let me into the hospital for
So
30
they told
minutes.
you he was gonna die, but you couldn't get in there? Like
Yes.
they said you need to come in here, but you're like, but I can't. They won't let me in.
The doctors, like multiple doctors and nurses, told me he was dying and I needed to come in and see him, but I couldn't get in, and they were trying to figure out how to get me in too. But no, but we kept just
So it was good
butting
that you put it on Facebook. Your
against.
dad was able to help you. I did something similar with my mom. My dad had to go to the hospital during a little bit later than your time frame,
Mhm.
and I had to put it on Facebook because it was at the time where we weren't seeing each other. We were trying to prevent us giving my parents COVID.
Yeah.
And so I got on Facebook and asked people to help give her rides because she can't see very well and needs help driving. And like so that she could go to the hospital and be the one person that was allowed because they transition and they
Oh
let one
yeah.
person in. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. I thankfully my dad went to the hospital a little bit later, so things were a little bit better. Yours was just the worst timing.
It really was. They let me in to see him for 30 minutes. I had to wear full PP, protective equipment, like hospital gown, gloves, double gloves, masks. I was
Yeah,
not allowed
the
to hug him.
shield, the
Oh yeah.
mask, and all that stuff. Yeah,
I wasn't allowed to hug him or kiss him. I could hold his hand.
which seems so
Um,
scary and sad.
it is. And I had been calling every night so he would at least hear my voice even though he was sedated, because even when people are sedated, we
They can
know
sometimes
they can
hear.
still hear.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that. Yeah.
So, and my undergrad, like I was saying earlier, is in music. So he really liked to hear me sing. So when I would just run out of things to talk about, I would just sing because I was just like, I know he needs to hear that I'm there in some capacity.
That's so sweet.
So, and the nurses told me multiple times, like, that every time he would hear my voice, that his stats would get better and things.
Oh,
So I just kept
so it
calling.
was helping.
Yeah. And so when I was in there, I was just talking to him and I was like, I don't know. It's like, I just found you. Like, how is this the end?
Yeah, it's like it can't be. How can you definitely cannot accept it. Who could accept that? I wouldn't be able to. I
No.
mean, so you're in shock. You're doing
Yeah,
everything that you
you're in
can, but
shock.
yeah.
Like, it's pretty common to not realize it unless, you've got cancer or something, but
And
someone's
it
dying.
was fast. You were
Yeah, it's
told he was
so
gonna get
fast.
better and he was gonna come out of the hospital better.
Yep.
And you couldn't even go see him. Yeah. Phew, girl, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah. And then after I left, I went home, and when I called for an update, the fever was like 118. And at that point,
I didn't even know you could have a fever that high.
that's because it will cook your brain. Um, and so that is the point that I knew that he was gonna die, and it was a matter of time.
Yeah.
But like when you're dealing with all of this at once, you're not thinking clearly at all, and you're just kind of, I don't, paralyzed is a good word,
Yeah, that
because
makes sense.
there was nothing I could do. And it's like all I knew, it's like I knew that if he got better, then I wouldn't be able to see him the next day. If he made it through the night and he was still doing bad, they would let me see him again for 30 minutes the next day. But obviously it didn't happen, because it like around 1:30 in the morning he passed away. And I mean, I was alone in my house, because
Did they call you after he passed away?
yeah, they
So in
call
the middle of
you.
the night, they called you and you got the news?
Yeah. So the doctor called me, told me, and it's just like shrieking, crying, hanging up on the doctor, because it's just like your world shatters.
You don't want it to be real.
Yeah, and it's like so hard when you're not with them to understand in your brain that they're not coming home.
If I like allow myself to think of a loved one, this happening to one of my loved ones, the pain, the pain is so immense. And I'm just allowing myself just a tiny bit to imagine, and then I have to stop because it's so painful. And
Yeah,
so I understand why people don't want to talk about this. If they have great loss, if they've lost a child or a spouse or a parent, I understand the desire to shut it off because it's so painful. But if you do shut it off, you don't recover. And
yeah,
I'm really proud of you because you told me right before we started that you very quickly talked about it, that you got on social media, you talked about it, that um and I don't think you knew what else to do at that point. It was probably a survival thing for you, but it just seemed like such the right thing for you to do, and I'm just really proud of you. You could have turned to alcohol, to drugs, to some addiction that would make you forget the pain, but you let the pain happen the best you could, and I just want to tell you I'm really proud of you that you did that. And I know you now, several
yeah.
years later, and I see what you're doing now to try to help Indiana, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. I'm just really proud of you, my friend,
Thank you.
and I'm
Yeah,
really sorry. I'm glad that we met now.
yeah,
That was such a COVID was such a terrible time. It was so scary. I'd never been so scared for my parents' lives. We were really worried about my husband's dad. He passed away 3 years ago. We were worried he had, type 1 diabetes. He lost his legs and is in a wheelchair. We were worried about getting him COVID. And I lost your video if you wanna put it back. I actually quit my job teaching to try to, protect the family from getting COVID. Like, I didn't wanna cause my family from getting COVID. Brianna, if you can't get back on, you can just get out of here and go back to that link and click on again. I don't know. I think you might have pushed something. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get Brianna back. Here we go. I think she's coming. But I can't believe the story she just told me, you all. It's so sad. I have a friend that I went to high school with, and her mom broke her arm and went to a nursing home. Hey, I'm glad you're back.
oh,
Can you hear me? So I had
there we
this
go, sorry
Hey,
about that.
so I had this friend that had her mom. We went to high school together. Her mom broke her arm at this exact same time that you're talking about in March of 2020, and they sent her to a rehab center to recover. She got COVID there and died, and so she was one of the first people to die of COVID. And I remember how much it was in the news, um, local news. I remember how, like, they would say where the people went too, so that, like, you could try to track the spread of it, and it was like a
Mhm.
horror story of how many people they were around. Tell me about how you started voicing what happened. You started telling your story on social media and kind of explain what happened there.
Yeah, so I kind of knew that grief just wasn't talked about.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so um there was just nothing. There was no support groups, I mean, you couldn't even see a therapist in person. And it's just like I had nowhere to kind of go with it. And so I did a lot of Zooms with friends, but it's like you can only put so much on one person. And the
Yeah.
level of,
Because everybody's stressed out. Even without they've just lost their spouse, we're so stressed out with this COVID and the lockdown and all the rules and the changes and the misinformation and the no cure.
yeah.
So you're saying you had some friends, but you couldn't really see them in person.
No, so it's like Zooming with people. It's like
Wow.
my mom came and stayed with me for like 6 weeks. Luckily, and like looking back, I was like, that was probably not the smartest choice at first. Because like obviously like we had no idea if I was still positive. We have no, and so
I mean, if I was your mom, I would have just stayed with you. I wouldn't have cared.
I
I
know
mean,
it's just
that's
like, but like also I'm like I was so terrified that I was gonna lose somebody else.
right. That makes sense.
And so we ended up going and staying for a week at a hotel, so that we could, because at that point we still thought it lived on surfaces for 2 weeks.
Right. Oh,
And
wow.
so he had already been in the hospital for almost a week. And so with the other week, we're like, well, at least this way it'll be dead. So when we came back, we had to sanitize the whole house and everything. But it's the social media stuff though. Someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, BuzzFeed is looking for young widows." And since I was 31 at the time, definitely qualified it. And so I said, "You can give them my information." They ended up reaching out to me, and I did an interview with them about what happened. Again, my whole point was to get people to realize it was serious and that it
Right.
didn't matter, because my husband's blood work, health, generally better than mine. You looking at us, you probably would have thought the opposite, but he loved working out. It's just genetics. It happens. And so I wanted people to know that it doesn't always react the way you think you're going to, and the people who you think are going to be safe aren't always safe, and you need to wear a freaking mask. And that's how I kind of started. And then
Do you
during,
know how many people saw that on BuzzFeed?
I have no idea. I mean, I would assume you can still find it if you search Brianna Berry, Indiana, because that was my name previously. You'll find them, because there's another one near the election that I did. And they asked when Donald Trump had COVID, is when I did that interview. And one of the questions they asked is if I hoped he died from it, which I thought was very strange. Um, but I said then that I don't
Seems
wish
like they're
that.
trying to create some division and
And some people did say
fear and
that.
hate then,
I
which is
said that
what
I
we're
don't
trying to
wish
fight
that.
against at Project Next. Yeah.
Yeah, I said I don't wish that kind of death on anyone. And so even on my worst enemies. And so that's how I did it. And then another news kid that when we were trying to get in the hospital, they reached out and wanted to do a story, because even though they weren't able to help us, he was from Fishers. He grew up in Fishers, Indiana. So, I mean, he was pretty active in his community too. So I wanted
Oh,
people to know that, like, this person who was a good person who liked to coach pee wee football, even though he didn't have
oh.
kids, just because he liked football and kids. And it's stuff like that. And I just wanted everyone to take it seriously and to know that it's not a hoax. It wasn't
Oh,
something.
yeah. People were calling it a hoax. That's
Yes,
right.
they were. And they were denying it. They said it never happened. I mean, like, we ended
Yeah.
up
Like,
doing.
I can't imagine how painful that is. Your husband literally died of the thing they're saying doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was very painful. And
Yeah.
they, that's weird lighting, but oh well. Um So yeah, they would tell me it didn't exist, and we did a funeral. I did a virtual funeral
Oh
be-
my gosh.
because the funeral, you were only allowed to have 10 people total in the room.
Oh,
And so I knew I needed to see his body, to be completely honest with you, because I wasn't in the hospital.
you
And I
weren't
was
with
like,
them. Yeah.
I don't think my brain is going to understand he's dead otherwise. And so even though it cost more money, I did that because I just knew I needed it. And so but the really bad part was is that it was on Facebook live streaming, and there was a person who came on to tell me that who was commenting during the funeral saying it wasn't real, that it was made up, and all this other stuff. I had complete strangers on the internet reaching out to me through social media to tell me that that my husband was killed um, by the hospital, that it wasn't COVID that killed Lou, it was the hospital. It's all this big conspiracy. It's I had people reaching out telling me that he died, he deserved to die because he was fat. By their standards, I had people. When I say that I got a really good look at what humanity thinks, that's what I mean.
And
Is
I
that
have to just say, those people were so scared. Those people were so scared of COVID. They couldn't admit the reality because it was freaking terrifying, you all. It was so scary. So
was
instead of letting this real thing come in, they had to convince themselves it was fake. And so when they saw the reality of your husband died from COVID, they could not let that reality in. They went so far as to yell at you who just lost your husband. So I know I have friends who just told me their relatives. I have friends that told me they have an aunt and uncle, and the aunt, they wouldn't get the COVID shot, and the aunt died of COVID, and she could have got the shot, and it could have saved her life. And the uncle still thinks that the COVID shot was bad, and that's not how she really died. People people cannot always face the truth. They're not mentally fit enough to handle the truth. And the truth during March and April 2020 was terrifying. And so many people went down the conspiracy path because they couldn't handle the scary things. And I'm
yeah.
so sorry that that happened to you. And I'm also really sorry for the people saying it because imagine how much they had to lose touch with reality
Yeah.
to not face their fear.
Yeah, and I realized that. I realized that they were just scared. At the
But it's so
time I did
sad.
yeah, at the
Yeah,
time I didn't. At the time it was very, very painful.
of course.
Because like people would even attack my weight on these articles. Um and it started I will say that getting out in the public has really pushed me to become more mentally fit.
You are
Uh
very mentally fit. That's why I really like you. I like how mentally fit and moral and brave and kind you are. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, cuz after he died, it it really and all of these horrible things kept happening to me, and these horrible things were said to me, and I
Ugh,
was dealing I ended up getting diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder from it.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So trying to deal with that, which it's a very difficult diagnosis to handle. um and when you're having flashbacks and you're having like breakdowns while driving and panic attacks all the time, it's just
Oh,
not like livable.
right.
And so I've been through so many therapists. I did so many therapies. The one that ended up actually working for me, because I've talked about it, I know rationally there's nothing I could have done. But I was still having all of this, all of these symptoms in my body that wouldn't go away that were related to it. And so I started doing something called ART,
What's that
accelerated
stand for?
accelerated resolution therapy.
Okay.
And so it's based out of EMDR. It's about combining your subconscious with your conscious brain, so your frontal lobe with your like more primitive brain. And it's really weird, but it works wonders. And now I don't have PTSD anymore. So that's great.
Huh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So
I'm glad
I,
you were able to find, I mean, I'm glad you put in the work. You did a lot of different types of therapies until you found one that worked for you.
it,
I'm really
it,
glad that you found that.
it is a lot of work, but I really, really recommend to anyone watching this that if you've lost a spouse, that, PTSD is very normal in people who lose their spouse, especially if they're younger. So, EMDR can be a great tool. ART is like EMDR, but it's less traumatic and the effects are longer lasting, which is
Huh,
why I chose it. I was very fortunate that one of my widow friends is actually a therapist and she told me about it.
that's nice. I'm
Yes.
glad that you reached out. You told me before the live started that you're on like widow Facebook groups.
Yeah,
And I really like that stuff. I'm on my own certain type of Facebook groups. Like you can find your own thing. Whenever I got pregnant with triplets, which I lost one and have twins, I found a Facebook group that was for multiples. And I reached out scared. I just found out I had triplets. And somebody said, this book by these doctors, these experts really helped me. And I bought this book. And the book basically saved my life because it told me what diet to have to help the babies not be
oh,
preemie. It helped me know what to do. And basically I would have needed a blood transfusion, but I had had this diet high in protein and I ate exactly like the book told me to, and it pretty much saved my life, I think. So
that's
Facebook
so
groups on those
cool.
specific things, like I'm really proud of you that you searched out. If anybody listening that has a certain type of pain or needs a certain type of thing, I do recommend those Facebook groups. You can find sometimes good information. There's bad information on there too, because it's human beings being human and we're imperfect,
Oh
but you
yeah.
can also get good stuff too. You just have to
Yeah.
filter it.
Yeah, just make sure you're checking like that the person knows what they're talking about or research it a little yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
because I looked up that book and it was like, oh, it was doctors that have been, taking care of women with pregnancies that were multiples for years and years and years, and it was like the sixth edition of the book. It was like, yeah, yeah,
oh yeah, then that's a good book. It's got a
yeah.
sixth
So
edition.
yeah, we got to end in just a few more minutes, but I may ask you to come back on in another time and just continue this conversation. Can you tell people how people can find you on you're on TikTok? That's how I found you. You're
Yeah,
on
so
Facebook, you're on Instagram, I think. Can you tell
I
people how to follow you?
yeah, so I am the Recovered Republican on most platforms. Those are my social medias. If I just have my Facebook personal page, so it's just Brianna Newhart on there. But any if you just search Recovered Republican on Instagram, TikTok, I am on YouTube, not as don't post as frequently on
So the
YouTube.
main things would be TikTok and Instagram, Recovered Republican.
Yep, that
And
is correct.
you do so what Brianna does is she does a lot of news about what is going on in Indiana. That's how we met because
Mhm.
I'm trying to help Indiana as well. And then you invited me on your TikTok and we did a TikTok live, which was really fun.
Yeah,
It was
so
nice to
that
get to
was
know
fun.
you. And
Yeah,
then
no,
we
that was
set up
great.
I was like, "Will you come on my mental fitness show? Will you tell this
Yeah.
story?" And I'm just really I'm really thankful that you were so brave and vulnerable. You really explained what happened. I'm never going to forget your story. Um you have to face the sad so that you can face the good. And you are happily remarried. Is
I
that
am. I
correct?
was gonna say this is not even the end of the story of what happened. Like there's so much to it. And actually how me and my current husband, Brandon, got together was actually partially through my husband dying
Aw.
because he is one of those people who's just still friends with their exes because he's a good person. And the nurse that took care of my husband a lot and on the night he died was his ex-girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
And she really resonated with me because I sang to my husband every night. She just felt like I really loved him and felt really sorry for me, honestly. And when he died, it really affected her, and she told him about it, even though they weren't dating. And how we got together. There's so much more to grief, but like one of the weird things that we did was go on dating sites to just play chicken with ourselves. And I one time on these times where I was gonna go, oh no, I'm not ready to date. I messaged Brandon. He and I went to the same undergrad as well and had friends in common. So I'm not sure if we would be together if it wasn't for all of this that happened.
It sounds like he's very loving and supportive to you and tries to understand your grief.
He does. Yeah,
I'm grateful for
he
that. You need that. I'm glad that you have
yes.
it.
He was definitely a very big blessing in my life. When he came into my life, he definitely took a lot of the grief, anger that I had, and
Oh, so much. I would have so much if I were you inside of
yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's this weird thing after you lose a spouse and you're remarried. I will say that. So,
Well, the
but
feelings for your husband that passed away don't go away, and then you have feelings for your current husband, and so I'm sure it's very emotional.
it is, and I think we're 5 years out, and I think 5 years, it's like I'm starting to feel like I'm in my new life, instead of more of a transitional phase. But I think, like I said, without my current husband, I think that it would have been a lot harder. It was
I'm
10 months
so
after.
glad you have him. I'm so glad you guys found
Yeah.
each other. That makes me really happy. Please give him a
Yeah,
hug for me and just
I
tell him
will.
I personally said thank you because I'm
He
really
might be
glad you
watching this. I don't know.
You have a friend, it's, Marcy. Are you
Oh yeah,
friends with her?
Marcy.
She's
Marcy's
been
one of my
on here
real
the whole time
friends.
commenting, so I just wanna say thank you for watching, Marcy.
Thanks,
Um,
Marcy.
that's sweet. I'm glad I'm glad for everybody that's your family and your friends that are out there helping you. Hopefully, you'll get more friends and family from this show. Like I told you before it started, one of my goals is when you are so willing to be vulnerable and brave and explain your story, hopefully it helps people care about you. And hopefully it helps people to better understand those loved ones in their life that are experiencing great loss. Because our culture tells us don't talk about it. Ooh, no, what if you talk about it? You'll make them think about it. They're already thinking about it. It's okay if you reach out. And I've tried it. So I meet Scott, Aaron Rodgers.
Hmm.
He shares with me his story of losing his son. I am talking to someone in the community that has a good job that they're involved with my kid's school. And I know that she lost her husband through COVID. And I
Hmm.
just, at an event, just talked to her about it. And she opened up to me and I gave her a hug. And I'm just like, I'm so glad I was a little brave in asking about the really sad thing in her life.
Yeah, it's
And
okay.
she was brave in talking back to me because I legit wanted to know and care about her.
Hmm.
And, you know,
And that's always okay to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" If you really want to know, it's always okay to ask. If you want to know, it's just be okay if the answer is
don't
I'm
ask
not doing well.
if you can't handle they're not doing well, but
Yeah,
ask if you really care. And I think if we all tried to care and not be so scared of the negative emotions, I think that we could grieve better in our society.
I do too. And it would be more integrated. And I just wish that our culture had something that was more about honoring the dead. I don't I feel like in America we kind of just like out of sight, out of mind. And
Don't
that's
think about
not.
it. Don't look at it. It's sad. Don't look at it.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And I feel like, one of the things that I said, it's like I wanted to talk about Lou, but like I didn't want to talk about Lou with other people. So it's okay to bring up that they died. They probably want to talk about it.
Yeah. And you kind of find out who your real friends are. The
Yes.
friends that can handle it. I had suicidal thoughts over a year ago,
Hmm.
and I really found out who my friends were when that happened because I didn't always handle it perfectly because people hurt me. And so I went a little too public about what happened, and I wouldn't have done that now, but I was too in
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I needed to get better immediately so I could take care of my children.
Of course.
And I really found out who loves me without judgment. And it was beautiful. I'm so glad I messed up and did the things that I did because now I know who I can love. And if I explain that to people and they can handle listening and they care about me, oh, you actually care about me without judgment. And that's
Yeah.
hard in our culture. But you are pushing the culture, my friend. You are pushing it by talking about what happened to your husband so openly. You are helping people. You're helping people do it by doing this show today. You're helping yourself by talking about it, right? To a new
Yeah.
person that didn't know the story. This is how we do this. This is how we recover. This is how we love and care about our fellow people in this world, that this life that is hard. We're still not recovered from COVID. We
Yeah.
got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um,
But
and
another time.
another time, yeah, maybe we can do a COVID show,
Yeah,
me and
for sure.
you. We could
Yeah, me
do
too.
that. Yeah, I'm about ready to enter a weird phase. This is my kid's last day of school, and my
Okay.
mom is not feeling great right now, so she can't watch the kids. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to do my shows. It won't be
Okay.
as many shows, but it's going to be an adjustment this summer. I got to figure out what to do with
You know
childcare.
what? Someone said to me that your life is like juggling, and some of the balls are glass, and some of them are plastic. It's okay to drop the plastic ones.
I'm gonna have to drop some plastic balls for the
Mhm.
next few weeks and figure this out because I gotta take my kids to fun places and be with my babies.
Of course,
The
they're only kids. Like seriously, there are so many of us trying to do this that if you miss a few shows or a couple days, it's not the end of the
You're
world.
so right. You're so right.
Like
And
it's
we've got tons of content. People can go back and see some of the
yeah.
stuff we missed. It's on YouTube. Facebook erases it
Yes.
after a month, but it's on YouTube if you want to go back. Yeah, that's really nice advice. I appreciate you giving me that. Um, yeah, it's just a new thing because I've never started a media company before.
Yeah,
And then
that's a lot in itself.
it's been really fun and it's been really rewarding. Yesterday I went to the Floyd County Democratic dinner
Mhm.
and it was almost sold out. There was only a few empty chairs in this big room at the Grand, and almost everybody knew about me already because of Project Next.
Oh, wow,
Like
that's
people were
cool.
saying, somebody told Tim Peck, the co-founder, he said they said, "Oh, I was listening to your Wendy Dant Chester episode while I was getting ready to come to this dinner." And that's been really nice. We are making a difference. We are trying to report stories that care about. We are doing the mental fitness show to try to help people because life is hard right now.
Yeah.
Um, so it is working, but I never feel like it's enough, and it's like we're brand new, so it's just
I
hard.
I feel that still, like, too, so I tell you these things because I tell myself these things a
Yeah.
lot. Because 'cause
Yep.
I'm just like,
Same.
"I'm only one person, I cannot do everything. I can only do how much I can do, and that's okay. I'm doing what I can do."
Yeah. Oh, my husband just released on YouTube his greatest cooking show episode ever, and it's how he makes his world famous pizza. He spent
Ooh,
so long editing this show. He made his own music. He had the kids banging on pots and pans, and he recorded this like cute little cooking with Chris thing. And
cute.
anyway, it just dropped on YouTube, and I will put it out on Facebook when I have time because it'll take a while to download. But it's like incredible. So it's the best
Aw,
edited video we have on Project Next yet. And what a sweet husband,
I love
seriously.
that.
Yeah, so you guys can check that out and you can watch it in sections if you want to just know how to make the sauce or the dough or the how do you make the dough and how do you put it in the
Mhm.
you can put it all in those little sections. It's really cute. So,
Thank you.
everybody, please share this episode with anybody that's going through loss or anybody that loves people going through loss and maybe it'll help them. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share our show on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. And I just want to thank you. I feel like I'd like to be your friend. So you have my cell number. Feel free to
Yeah,
text me. I'd like to have you on again.
of course. Yeah, just let me know when you're available.
And I'm really proud of you. You're
Thank you.
freaking amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you. I am just it's just one foot in front of the other, to be completely honest.
The people that are in your life that you love are very lucky to
Oh,
have you.
thank
You're a
you.
good person. You're fighting for people that you love, and I admire that, and I try to do that too, and then just
Yes.
yeah, I just like that we can stick together and work together and try to help make the state better.
Yes, I'm hoping that this helps with visibility of Democrats in Indiana as well, because people just don't think we exist, and it's not true.
No, we're not little blue dots. There's tons of us, and we're
Mhm.
uniting, and we're working together, and we're growing, and we're going to make a difference. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but we're not stopping. I'm
Yeah.
living here. I live here. My family lives here. My
Yep.
children go to school here at the public schools. I'm not stopping. You're not stopping. A bunch of other people aren't as well. So, yeah, have hope. And also, Republicans are great people. The majority of Republicans are fantastic humans. Sometimes the news they're getting is misleading. Sometimes the news Democrats are getting is misleading, and we need to work together and unite. And the division is what is hurting us the most. The
Yes.
fear, the hate, the division of the two political parties is disgusting, and we have to work together to save our state. So I'm determined to do that with Project Next.
Yeah, I am so glad you started this. This is awesome. Indiana needs it very badly.
That's what's so amazing. When I met people in that room yesterday at that dinner, these are prominent people. These are people with positions of power, and they're saying thank you for what we're doing. And that meant a lot because so far it just seems like a fight. It's just fighting to get people to
Yeah,
watch us. But then to hear people are watching us and are like, I've learned stuff. I appreciate it. You made me think about this. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I can keep doing it. I can keep doing it
yeah.
because, it's hard.
Grassroots growth takes a long time. It really
Growing that
does.
YouTube channel, we need 1,000 subscribers. We have a little over 500. It is work. It is
It
work.
is. It is. It is a lot of work.
Yeah,
It is.
people
It's a
don't
big one.
know. I envy people that don't know what work it is. I'm like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're not trying to push something out on social media."
Yeah, I know. It's like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, my life would be so much less complicated if I didn't care so much.
Keep caring, girl, but just take care of you and know who your friends are. Put me on
Oh
that list,
yes.
and
Yeah,
just
of course.
we'll work together and we will help make the state better.
Yay. I'm
Love you,
so
girl.
happy. I love you
Thank you
too.
for sharing this hard story with me and with our viewers. I'm sure they have a lot of love for you, hopefully, too, because you deserve that love. Just
Oh,
open up and just take it and let it fuel you because, that pain's never going to go away.
yeah.
You're going to deal with it better, but it's never going to go away. And so you just need all the extra love and support and no judgment, on
Yeah.
yourself. Don't judge yourself. You're amazing. You
That's
did
the hardest
so
part.
much for your husband. You're telling me it. You did so much more than the average person. It was really beautiful. And your story is so sad, but it's beautiful. The love you and your husband had for each other, the fight you both put in. I wish it would have ended differently, but that's life.
It's the it is life and
I'm glad you
uh
have your husband now, and,
yeah, I am
I
too.
just sorry for your husband that passed away. His life sounded so hard.
It did and it that was a very big part of my grief was just how hard his life was and that
Yes, that makes sense.
he got I just felt like he got robbed
Yes.
because I felt like he was finally finding happiness and finally finding a good place in life and it
Oh,
was taken away is what it felt like.
and he was, like, gonna go to therapy and get all extra mentally healthy and share
Yep.
this stuff with you, and it's gonna be beautiful, and it's just yes, he was robbed of his life. Yes,
He
I
was.
totally understand why you feel that way. It just seemed yes, I agree. Ugh, yeah, big love. Alright, everybody, we'll go ahead and end it. I could talk for hours with you, but we both are busy, and good luck with
Oh,
everything, and I'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.
sounds great. See you
Thank
soon.
you, everybody. Bye, you guys.